Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're getting under the skin of a problem that so many of us have dealt with. That frustrating, persistent rash that just will not go away. We're talking about allergic contact dermatitis, and we're going to figure out what's really causing it. You've been there, right? You get this itchy red rash, you put some cream on it, it seems to go away, but then boom, it comes right back, a lot of times in the very same spot. Well, that frustrating cycle, that's a classic sign we might be dealing with allergic contact dermatitis. All right, so to solve this little mystery, our first step is to really understand the culprit. Let's define what this relapsing rash actually is, and maybe more importantly, what it isn't. Okay, so the absolute key thing to get about allergic contact dermatitis, or ACD, is that you're not born with it, and it's not some instant thing like a bee sting. No, this is a learned response. Your own immune system has over time been trained to see a specific and often totally harmless substance as a major threat, and then it launches an attack. And you gotta know, this is totally different from just plain old irritation. Irritant dermatitis is like a chemical burn. If you spill bleach on your skin, it's going to cause damage that would affect anybody. But an allergic reaction, that's personal. That is your immune system specifically overreacting to something that doesn't bother most people at all. So, how in the world does your body learn to react like this? How does it develop such a specific grudge against something? Well, it all comes down to your skin's amazing and very long-lasting immune memory.
It's this really fascinating two-stage process. First up is sensitization, and this part is totally silent. You don't even know it's happening. You touch something for the very first time, and your body's internal security system basically creates a wanted poster for this new substance. Then comes the second stage, elicitation. This happens on every single future contact. The system sees that suspect again and immediately sounds the alarm, causing inflammation and, you guessed it, that classic rash.
And this is the perfect example of that delayed reaction we were talking about. Just think about poison ivy. The very first time you ever touch it, it can take up to 2 whole weeks for a rash to even show up. Your body's busy behind the scenes, training its immune cells. But every single time after that, whoa, those cells are ready to go and the reaction happens way, way faster. So what are these chemicals that can trigger such a powerful response? You might be picturing, some exotic plants or weird industrial toxins. But the truth is, the most common ones are hiding in plain sight, in products you probably used this morning. In fact, out of the thousands of potential allergens out there, get this. Just about 25 common chemicals are responsible for nearly half of all cases of allergic contact dermatitis. I mean, think about that. A tiny group of culprits is causing a massive amount of trouble. And you can see right here that women tend to experience ACD more often than men. A huge reason for this gap comes down to one specific trigger, which just so happens to be the single most common allergen in the entire world. And here it is, nickel. It is the #1 culprit on a global scale. Now, we often think of it in jewelry, which definitely helps explain that gender disparity. But honestly, nickel is everywhere, from the metal snap on your jeans to the cell phone in your hand. Okay, next up, fragrances. And this one is super tricky, because fragrance on a label can be a secret blend of hundreds of different chemicals. And what's even more confusing is that products labeled unscented can still have masking fragrances in them to cover up other smells. Because of trade secret laws, companies don't actually have to tell you what's inside. Now, here is a bit of an irony for you. The very preservatives that keep our lotions and cosmetics from going bad can also be major triggers for our skin. Certain kinds of preservatives that release tiny amounts of formaldehyde are incredibly common, and for people who are sensitized, they're a well-known cause of allergic reactions. And the list of usual suspects just keeps going. It includes stuff like PPD, which is the chemical that makes hair dye permanent and can cause some really severe reactions. It's also in the chemicals that make rubber gloves more durable, and even in some of those popular antibiotic creams you can get over the counter. Okay, so with all these potential allergens hiding in so many everyday items, how on earth do doctors pinpoint the exact cause of your rash? Well, it takes some serious medical detective work. The investigation doesn't actually start with a test. It starts with your story. A good doctor will ask you all kinds of questions about your job, your hobbies, the products you use every day, and exactly when and where the rash shows up. A lot of times, the location of the rash itself is the single biggest clue. So the definitive method, the gold standard for figuring out the culprit, is something called patch testing. Now, this isn't like a regular allergy prick test. Instead, tiny amounts of the suspected allergens are taped to your back for about 2 days. The doctor then takes them off and reads the results, looking for tiny, localized rashes. And then they do a final reading a few days later, because remember, this is a delayed reaction. And patch testing isn't the only tool in the toolbox. A skin biopsy can help make sure it isn't some other condition that just looks similar. There are even simple chemical spot tests to check if your belt buckle has nickel in it. And to confirm a really weak result, a doctor might have you apply one of your own products to a small patch of skin for a few days, just to see what happens. So once all that detective work is done and the culprit has been identified, the path to clear skin gets a whole lot simpler. The final step is all about managing your triggers. And this, right here, this is the most important part of this whole thing. Yeah, steroid creams can help soothe the inflammation and the itching, but they are just a temporary fix. The only real, definitive, long-term solution is to identify your specific allergen and then completely avoid it, period. Living with that answer means you basically have to become a vigilant consumer, an expert label reader. Thankfully, there are awesome tools now, like smartphone apps and online databases that can help you find products that are totally free of your specific allergen. It's really all about taking control and making informed choices for yourself. And at the end of the day, this says it all. Your greatest weapon against allergic contact dermatitis is simply knowledge. Once you know what your triggers are, you have the power to avoid them and finally let your skin heal. So, we'll leave you with this question to think about. That fragrance-free lotion you use, the metal on your watch, the preservative in your shampoo, what hidden triggers might be part of your routine? A little detective work could be the key to healthier skin.